guys are all like standing. That's great. Okay, perfect. Well, hi everyone. My name is Shelby Osborne and this is Michael Glaspie. And we are talking to you guys today about delayed financing. So thank you guys for all coming out. Really appreciate it. And just, have your masks ready at all times. And then just a reminder, there is beer in the fridge, which we're not allowed to legally sell beer. So take whatever you want, but there is a tip jar on the table as well as our company Venmo. So if you'd like to give us a tip, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, and just some announcements before we get started. So Five Pillars Realty Group is the group that hosts Pints and Properties, and we are expanding to Charlotte, just so you guys know. And Michael will be there in October, so we can start servicing people in October, and then I'll be following suit in December. Operations will still be running here as normal, but we will have a Five Pillars out in Charlotte, as well as a Pints and Properties out there. So if you have Charlotte friends, just get them so excited. Okay. With that, we are looking for talent always in locations in Fayetteville and in Charlotte. So if anyone actually is interested in real estate as an agent or an admin or any sort of thing like that, just let us know and we'd love to talk to you. And then also, I think most of you guys know that this is a military town and the Army and the military in general has this awesome thing called the Career Skills Program that allows people who are getting out of the military to intern with whatever company of their choice for 6 months, which is fully paid by the military. Letting that sink in. It's pretty cool. So if anyone wants to intern, let me know, tell your friends. And then finally, I just want to give a shout out. So Mike wrote a book, The Elite Investor, and within 10 hours, he is a bestseller on Amazon, #1 bestseller within 10 hours. So. Exciting. Okay, perfect. Delayed financing. Well, that's why we're here today. Okay, so most of you guys know that we're here to invest, right? We're here to acquire rental properties or flip or whatever, but most of us are generally looking for financial freedom, for buying and holding, that sort of thing. And the biggest problems that we generally run into are money. How are we going to acquire these properties? And then also the speed. A lot of us are super motivated to acquire as much as possible quickly, and those tend to be the two biggest hurdles. So we wanted to talk about delayed financing today because it addresses both of those primary concerns for investors. So with that.
All right, so let's get to it. So what is delayed financing? It's when your financing is delayed. That's it. See y'all later. No, that's it, guys. So this is an actual program, all right, that lenders will call it delayed financing, but the concept is very simple. We just pay with cash, and then we wait a little while, and then we get a mortgage, and we get our money back. That's ultimately what it is. This is our solution as investors for that lack of money and that lack of time, because we get to recycle that cash. All right? Yes. So to recycle the funds, this is kind of big here. So imagine if you had $100,000 and that's all you had. All right, you could do it through traditional mortgages. Go out and get 5 properties, all $100,000 at 20% down. Now your money is gone. It's tied up in those mortgages for 30 years. The only way you can get another $100,000 is for you to go out and earn another $100,000. Everybody understand that? All right. Now imagine if you had $100,000 and you bought a house, all cash. You waited 3 months, got your $100,000 all the way back. You can go out and buy another one, right? And another one, and another one, and another one. So the recycling of funds is super powerful for somebody who's strapped with cash. You only have so much money. Now you can get unlimited properties over time with the same original funds. All right. Now the acquiring properties faster piece. Who in here is familiar with BRRRR? Who's heard of that term? All right. Typically with BRRRR, you need something called a seasoning period. Is everybody familiar with the seasoning period? It's basically saying, hey, you got to wait 5, 6 months with the tenant in place to show that this property is stabilized over time before the lender then gives you your money. Or with delayed financing, you could do it almost immediately, but right after renovations, you can start the loan product. Right? So instead of 6 months, now you can get it done in 3 months. So think about that. 6 months, you can get 2 properties with the same money, right? Because 6 months, 12 months in 1 year, or with delayed financing, you can now get 4 properties in 1 year. So it speeds up the time that you can use it. And so when do we do it? So obviously you guys know the verb. It is what it is, right? Buy, rehab, rent, refi, repeat. The biggest thing here is the rehab. The reason we're going to look for delayed financing as an option is when we have a property that's pretty beat up, we know we need to do some renovations, and we're like, okay, what's the best way to do it? It's beat up enough that an appraiser is not going to give us full value, right? But we can get it at a discounted price by far. So now maybe this is going to be a good subject property to do something like this. We can get in there, buy it for really cheap, get our labor done at cost or whatever the case may be, and then quickly start the loan project. Or we can do something like a turn and burn. Who knows what a turn and burn is? Oh, of course.
Dan, of course. He created that term.
Yeah, he created it.
So.
Dan Kidd back there is the mastermind of all these terms. All right, think about it like this. Say a property's been sitting on the market for a while, and it's a good property. Nothing's wrong with it. You don't need to do renovations, but it's been sitting for a while, and you can get it at a discounted price. Let's say it's worth $100,000 on the market, but you, for some reason, you get it for $70,000. Well, if it's worth $100,000 at the time that you purchase it, you could essentially buy it for $70,000, and the next, $70,000 cash. Then the next day, start delayed financing and put a loan on. It's a turnkey property, technically, right? So that's a turn and burn, right? So it's the same thing. We just skipped the rehab part. We bought it, refied it, and repeated it, right? All right.
Good. Any questions so far? Okay, perfect. All right, now we're going to talk about what the details look like when acquiring the property. So this is the acquisition piece on the front end. Okay, he mentioned before that you're going to buy this property cash, but what we really mean by cash is that without a lien, because that's the stipulation for delayed financing. It doesn't actually have to be cash. This can be a line of credit. This can be a HELOC or your 401k, or this can be private money. So private money, there's a lot of workarounds and some stipulations that you do have to go through, but it is very possible. That's a little in the weeds. So if you do want to know more about that, I can answer questions on the end and I'll wrap back to that, but I'm gonna let it be for now. So when we say cash, that's what we mean, no lien. The next piece is when you guys are going to the closing table for the acquisition, this needs to be all costs for the project. So that means purchase, that means renovation, that means insurance, that's any cost that you can possibly incur for this property needs to be on the closing disclosure. So that means there's legwork that you have to do ahead of time. You have to acquire those invoices, those estimates. You have to acquire everything possible that you need for the entire project and make sure that it's accounted for on the CD. The other thing that I want to note is that if, let's say, you're going a little fancy and you're doing an Airbnb, that's another thing that you can get an invoice for upfront and have that cost on the closing disclosure. Just so that way, and Mike will talk about it in the loan section, but you need to acquire all those costs up front. So just a quick way to think about it, if you think ARV times 75% minus your renovation, and then that's your max purchase price. So that's just like quick numbers on how to do the calculations, or renovations plus whatever, what other costs are associated with the product. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, who's glazed over? Have I lost anyone? I talk fast sometimes.
So if you guys think about it, right? If you buy the property, but you didn't include those invoices, those Airbnb costs, the furniture, the whatever, when you go to refinance, you can't get that money back. So the trick is, how do we get as much money back as possible, right? So that was the acquisition. Now we're going to talk about the loan. Now you can only pull out up to 75% of the market value, okay? Think about it. A lender is never going to give you 100% unless you get a VA loan, right? That's a beautiful thing. But on an investment property, for this delayed financing program, you can only get up to 75% of the market value or the cost of the project that's disclosed on the HUD, whichever is less. All right? So let's think about it. Real round numbers. $100,000 is the market value. The lender's willing to give you 75%, right? $75,000. They're willing to give it to you. But if you decided not to put those invoices on the HUD and your HUD only shows 60,000, how much are you getting back? 60,000, right? So that's the important on the acquisition, to make sure it's all on the HUD. Now, this is only for the single families. I'm sorry, because for the 2 to 4 units, they're only going to give 70%. So the same process applies, but just make sure when you're using your numbers or you're looking at your numbers, you take 70% of the ARV minus the repairs and the invoices, and that becomes your max allowable offer. Most of you guys should be familiar with that term. All right. Now this bad boy changed, and this kind of sucks for us. It says a minimum loan amount of $75,000. If the loan amount is $75,000, who's quick enough with math to tell me how much the purchase price or the market value needs to be? Oh, you quick. Wait, I ain't allowed to me 24 hours to figure that out. I'm the calculator and everything else. So 100,000 is the ARV is what it has to be. If you do this rehab and you're trying to do a delayed financing today and your market value is only 85,000, you're out of luck with this specific product, okay? Now, every lender is a little bit different, but this is becoming more and more common due to COVID. Originally, before, the minimum loan amount was 60,000. So you can essentially buy a property for 80, 85,000, or market value of 80, 85,000, you're all good. But COVID's kind of laid some restrictions down, so we have to be a little bit more conservative when we're running our numbers. Most lenders do think it's going to bounce back, but while we're running the numbers, we need to be prepared for that 75,000. All right. So in order for it to fall within this delayed financing program, the refinance or that original finance must actually take place between the first day that you close, or day one after you close, up to 6 months. That's not saying that after 6 months you can't put a loan on it, because believe me, there's a lender out there who wants to give you money. That's what they're in business for. But we're talking very specifically about this product. Which brings us, yeah, what you got?
Just back that last point. Are there any situations where it would make sense to wait out the 6 months?
Yes, and that's called a cash out refi, which is really where the BRRRR strategy came from, right? David Green decided to slap them words together, and the loan product was called a cash out refi. After 6 months, that's a different program. It's no longer delayed financing like we're talking about, where now you can bring 75% of market value or whatever's disclosed on the HUD, whichever is greater. You see the difference? Delayed financing is whatever is less, cash out is whatever is greater, right? So yes, there is a time where it may be more advantageous for you to just wait a little bit.
So like, let's say you're all in 75, but now the market value is 150. You probably want to wait the 6 months because you're going to get, a pretty large extra money.
Potentially. And we're actually going to get into one piece why you may not want to take out more than you can chew on one of these other slides, but every investor strategy is different. If you wanted to recycle your money faster, this is the opportunity, right? The cash out is just going to be a lot slower. All right. Now, with this being said, we're talking again about the delayed financing product. That's a Fannie and Freddie product, essentially saying that, hey, this specific loan is tied to your personal name, okay? There are some other delayed financing products or very similar type of, structures meant for LLCs or meant for businesses. You're gonna have higher rates typically, maybe a lower LTV, things like that, right? So when you're asking for this specific product, make sure that you're asking the right questions and you understand that it is tied to your name. When it's tied to your name, you can only get 10 mortgages at one single time. Does everybody know that? Everybody familiar with that, right? So essentially, if you have 4 properties, you only, by their guidelines, to get more in your name with lower rates and higher LTVs, you can only get 6 more, okay? Now, this is heavily influenced by your DTI. Anybody know what DTI is? Debt to income. That's it, right? Debt to income. So if you're making $100,000, that's great. If your debt is $100,000, or when we say debt, we're talking about your reoccurring payments, right? So your car payments, your loan payments, obviously mortgages, student loans, things of that nature. If it's equal, you're screwed, right? You can't go any higher than about 50%. So one of the other beautiful things about most lenders are going to sit there and they'll take 75% of your rental income and allow you to count that towards taking off some of your debt. Right? So that might help you. But at a certain point, many investors actually can't even get to 10 properties because they exceeded that threshold long before. All right, so keep that in mind. Don't sit there and just think you're going to get 10 properties in a row. This is going to stop you before anything else does, more than likely.
And I was just going to note too that, so it does have to be in your personal name, but also like if you're married and your debt to income supports, that's 10 for you, that's 10 for your wife. You know, there are always just creative solutions that you can do. And then also, I mean, we discussed this before, where like you can do 10 and then wrap it into a portfolio loan, get it off your personal name, and then, you know, do it again. This is all dependent on whether you as an applicant can, you know, qualify, but just don't ever think that you're stuck in the box. So.
Never stuck in a box. Another thing around this DTI here is that you can do delayed financing without a lease in place. That's a beautiful thing, right? So you don't need a tenant lease in place. Buy the property, boom, turn around and put a loan on it. But if your DTI is screwed up, you want that lease in place so you can get it counted against your income or against your debt. Make sense?
Okay, let's talk costs and timeline. Okay, so right now, COVID timeline, we're looking at 45 to 60 days from the date your application is submitted until you can close on that delayed financing product. Just so you guys know, if you were doing this pre-COVID, that was a 2 to 3 week turnaround. So this is a big factor to take into consideration. I just need to note, guys, that you have to sync with your lender. You don't have to, but you should, before that initial acquisition. So a lot of people, they're like, oh, I'm just going to do delayed financing. Buy the property, roll with it, talk to their lender after the fact and find out, can't qualify for such and such reason, forgot this on the closing disclosure, like all of these issues that could have been prevented if they had only communicated earlier with their lender. One thing that we do is every time we do a delayed financing deal, we send our HUD, our HUD product to our lender prior to letting our client sign. Because back in the day, before we did that, you know, sign, good to go, and then we're like, oops, you know, something was forgotten. So just making sure that that lender is reviewing that before you seal the deal can save you tons and tons of money. Okay, the next one is appraisal costs. So that appraisal for that delayed financing, just did one the other day, it was $700, which is higher than it was pre-COVID. And I just want to note that this is another reason why you should sync with your lender, is because if you guys are doing deals right now, you know that the appraisal turnaround time is ridiculous. So by syncing with your lender and saying, hey, what's the turnaround time on the appraisal? If he says, hey man, there's no way I'm getting you in there, you know, for closer than 4 weeks, and you know that you have 2 weeks left on your rehab, you don't have to do this. This is what I would do. I would start my application, hey, we're good to go, because I know that the rehab's going to be done in 2 weeks, and by the time the appraiser gets out there, it'll be good to go. So I'm not saying that that's the right way for everyone, but if you want to be really in touch and speed stuff up, it's just communicate as much as you can. Okay, closing costs, you're looking at $2,500, and then just so you guys know, this is in a 30-year fixed rate. Okay, last slide. Like I said before, cash, that is liquid verifiable assets. So these are the ones I mentioned before, that line of credit, 401k, private money. And then there, like Mike mentioned, there is no season period. So that's, you know, time is money, and this really speeds up the entire process. One thing I do want to note is I see this mistake all the time, guys, is it's, again, communication. So the minute that you get that deal under contract, even if you're not closing in 4 weeks, you're on the phone with your contractor. Yo, man, I got this project. I need you to start on this date. So he's in your calendar, because contractors are so backed up right now. If you wait until you actually close and then call him, you're already, you know, 2 months behind. So just make sure that you do that up front. And this last one.
And the last one is don't obsess over the clean burn. This goes actually right back to your question that we were talking about. A lot of people sit down and say, hey, if I put in $75,000, I need to get all $75,000 back out. Otherwise, it's not a good deal. That's fine. Good is subjective. You get to define what that means for you. But you really need to focus on your actual return on your investment. The capital that you're actually leaving in, how much is that actually growing? When you look at it, you potentially can leave maybe something small like $5,000 in, right? But you still get your $25,000 worth of equity, and you're still getting cash flow. Now, when you run those numbers, your return on investment is phenomenal. All right. People obsess over this, and then they get stagnant on their deal acquisition because they can't get them. They keep getting outbid. And the last thing is the cash flow killer. So one of the reasons why you may not want to do a cash out refi on a $150,000 home and pull out $120,000 is because now the mortgage may be so high that the market rent says $900 a month. Well, Well, now you just depleted your entire cash flow because you took too much money out. Okay, it's just a consideration because everybody's investment strategies are unique. They're meant for you and your portfolio, but just understand some of the consequences of taking too much money, moving too slow, moving too fast, and things of that nature. Does that answer your question?
Awesome. Questions?
Boom. That was
Anyone?
quick.
Yes.
Oh, here we go. All right.
Trevor? Yes?
Does just any lender provide the late financing option?
No, that's a great question. Okay, so most lenders, you're going to call them and they're going to be like, what is that? I don't know what you're talking about. So that is, we use Patrick Stoy and his team from MC Mortgage, and they actually were supposed to be here teaching this class. Patrick got COVID, but he is fine. I just talked to him. He never had a fever, whatever. And today is his last day of quarantine, so he's all good. But the point is, the MC Mortgage team is our go-to for this just because they knock them out all the time, and Patrick is a genius. So we can send out that contact information with these slides if that would be helpful. Okay.
Locally, American Mortgage has started doing as well.
Okay, awesome.
Can you guys speak more to like concerns with the contractors you use? Sorry if I missed it, but like both in like your relationship with them and whether there's like lender requirements for who you can use as a contractor to do this.
Our contractors suck.
We use Kyle, yeah, and T in the back a lot, so that was a dig. But in regards to lender requirements for this, so it's not like, you know, a VA reno loan or a, you know, they don't have licensed general contractor requirements, and they don't come out and do draws or anything like that. So literally you can just throw in the invoice on the HUD, and there's no rules in regards to that with Patrick Stoy's team.
Just a little tidbit.
Yeah.
If you guys are really new, I will tell you one thing about contractors. A contractor you need to find to do your job if you don't know what you're doing is a guy you don't have to put half down to for the contractor, because he can leave your property. But if you give him the money for half down, it doesn't mean he has to give those roofing shingles to your site, where you ever have to see. Again, most contractors are not brick and mortar, and the majority of contractors you'll be using for rental will not be licensed. They're just so expensive and they're so backed up. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
To kind of touch on that point there, in the state of North Carolina, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe 30,000 or 35,000 you can do up to without actually being a license.
Per job.
Per job.
You know, you could walk into 100,000 as long as you divide it up on bids.
Right. So understanding that, and then understanding the loan product itself, a lot of the VA, the FHA, the HUD, and things of that nature, a lot of times they'll have their own requirements for the licensure and the insurance piece. But in the state of North Carolina, you can find many people that can do certain jobs up to a certain dollar amount. Just keep that in mind. This is one of those products.
Does that answer your question? Okay, cool.
So does your lender typically ask for more than one estimate for repairs, or
No.
just one would be suffice for?
So remember the concept of this strategy. All right. So in the concept of this strategy, ideally, the repair funds are placed on the HUD. So there's nothing for them to verify. It's already on the HUD, right? You've already gotten the invoice. It's already on the HUD. That's the concept of this strategy. Depending on the different type of loan products out there, they may ask for multiple repairs, but not with this specific strategy.
This is very hands-off. Yeah, because I know I said communicate up front and all that stuff, but you don't have to. A lot of times people will just come and like, I close this, I'm ready to do delayed financing. And they're like, okay.
I will tell you one thing, because I've done it before. I bought a house cash, and then I was like, oh, I'll just do the repairs, and then I'll refinance it later. Well, if I wanted to pull my repair money back out, now it's no longer delayed financing. Now it's, I got to get an appraiser out there. We got to go market value. We got to, you see what I'm saying? So you just convoluted this specific strategy.
And I know we had a question in the back.
Yeah, are you SOL if you acquire using entity, even if you're 100% owner of that entity?
You're not SOL. It's just for this particular Fannie and Freddie product, then you wouldn't be able to do it within an LLC. But
Yep. Yes, I buy most of my properties in LLCs.
Yeah.
And so the process is the exact same, right? It's just you're going to have higher interest rates. You're probably going to have a lower loan to value, but it's the same.
Do you recommend a lender?
Same guy.
yeah.
Yeah, his partner. So Patrick Stoy primarily works in the realm of personal loans, and then his partner Ronald Salnier And we'll pass out that information.
Yeah, I made a note. So if you signed in, we'll send out the slides along
Okay.
with the contact information of the lender we're talking about.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Yes.
What about, like working with wholesalers on this? Something like a lot of them, they want you to close in like 7 to 14 days, but all the application process is 45 to 60. But y'all have any experience mixing those two things together?
Yes.
Two different, yeah, so it's two different parts. So the wholesaler, that's the acquisition close for that you've already bought the property by the time you're going to do delayed financing. So there will be no.
Yep.
Am I
Yeah.
right?
So she's exactly right. So the wholesaler piece,
Doesn't
by all
matter.
means, go buy from them.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Because when you go back to the HUD, you can have an assignment fee on there, you can have the insurance, you can have the cost of construction, it's all in the HUD. You already own the property, remember? And so the concept, if you kind of remember delayed financing, all you're doing is delaying putting a financing on a property that you already own. That makes sense.
Would Patrick know how that process works? Like if I say wholesaler brings me a deal and I go to Patrick or the lender, whoever, and I say, hey, a wholesaler's bringing me this deal, but I don't know how to walk through the process of bringing this from a wholesaler, will he know how to do that?
So to clarify the difference, how are you buying the wholesale deal?
I'm super inexperienced, so I don't know yet.
No worries. Typically, when you buy the wholesale deal, remember for this product, it's cash or a cash equivalent. So Patrick's not actually going to be involved with your specific transaction with the wholesaler. That's going to be an attorney. All right. Now Patrick is just getting geared up. He's like, okay, I see you. You're about to close here. I'm coming in here. You know what I'm saying? He's getting geared up, but he has nothing to do with that primary closing, if that makes sense. So if a wholesaler came to you today and he says, hey man, I got a banger deal. I want you to knock it out in 7 days. The question you need to ask yourself is, one, is it a good deal for me? Two, how am I going to come up with the cash to buy it? Then you're going to tag on.
Because if you're not buying it cash with a wholesaler, that's a whole nother can of worms that we get into. And that's one of the reasons why wholesalers want cash so much, is because lending on wholesale deals with giant assignment fees, there's rules against that for lenders. So basically, if you want to buy with a wholesale deal with any type of financing, let your agent know ASAP, like, especially if we do wholesale deals all the time. So like, we know the workarounds, we know which lenders to talk to, because if not, you could really screw yourself if you don't know up front. But cash is easy.
Two quick questions. One, sort of bouncing off Trevor's question. If you were, say, dealing with a lender that doesn't know delayed financing, how easy would it be to kind of school them up or say, hey, learn this, I want to do this?
Most of them are terrified. I've tried to convince many lenders. I'm like, guys, like, we do it with this guy, you can do it too. And they're like, that sounds bad.
So it really just depends on the lender. That's it.
Yeah.
Not all lenders are created equal. But here's the thing. What is it, without even trying to like school anybody up on this, literally you're going to somebody who's in the business of lending money and you're telling them, hey, I own this property. I want to put a mortgage on it. That's it. They're gonna jump. Right now the rates, the terms may be a little bit different, it may be more expensive, but they're gonna give you the damn money, right? Their process may be a little bit different. So as long as you can keep that conceptually in mind, you own the property. All I want is a mortgage on it.
Shop around.
And then you can shop around, right? What's your second one?
Same person. So with the 75K is the minimum loan now.
Right now.
You also compare it to the cash out refinance. What's the minimum loan for cash out refinance? Does that go up as well? Is that?
I don't know.
That's a really good question, but I don't know the specific answer. I don't know, but I do know that minimum loan amounts, minimum reserves, which we didn't even touch on, everything like that is increased because of COVID, right? So a lender, obviously they're in the business of lending money, but they're so risk adverse. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure that they're safe, to include increasing loan amounts, increasing reserves, so forth and so on, right? So I don't know the exact answer, but I would damn near bet yes.
But me too.
Yeah.
I would say so.
Yeah, I was about to say, you just did 80% fee, but that's an LLC.
Right. And oh my gosh, there's so many different products that do, like First Citizens does 85%. So we're just talking about delayed financing. We're not saying that there aren't other options out there.
And the more you guys understand, like the general concepts of the money, right? How are we recycling money? How are we reusing the resources that we have and leveraging out the resources that we don't? Well, now you guys can work with magic. You can shop around, ask every lender, what kind of products do you have? Well, maybe this one's better for this. Well, maybe I can put these two together. Maybe I get a hard money loan for the acquisition and then do a refinance on the back, right? So it's like a game of, you got to learn the science first, the foundation, and then you can make the art in the end.
Totally. And every day we're still learning, like, oh my gosh, did you know you could do X? So it's like a constant learning. Just talk to as many people as you can, for sure. Do you want to know? Okay. So you can use private money as your cash. So 2 different ways to do that. If you use private money, let's say that you get, $75,000 deposited in your account now, and then you acquire the property and try to do delayed financing, you will need to provide a promissory note from that private money lender saying that there is no repayment, monthly repayment for that property. That is how they're going to let you get away without having that money in your account. The other way that you could do it is you could get the private money loan and then wait 60 days. So that way that money is stabilized on your bank account for 60 days. And then you can go ahead and do the delayed financing, because they will require you to provide the past 2 months bank statements to show that you've had those funds. So either that you show that you have them, or you show that you're not required to repay on a monthly rate. Does that make sense?
They get paid their interest at the end.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So you just have to make sure that whoever's lending you the money is, and it comes with a lot of phone. I call Patrick all the time. I'm like, hey, so what if I did this? And I make sure I ask up front, because I want to have the game plan like on lock before we acquire the property. You know what I mean? Does that help? Okay, cool. Any other questions? Cool. Yes.
How accurate does your invoice from your contractor need to be on your say you have to switch contractors, the price changes, especially maybe if it comes down?
So if it comes down, you have a good relationship with your contractor and they cut you a check after the fact. What up, Kyle? So in my experience, it is better to plan for more and then work that piece on the back end than plan for less and be like, oh shit, now I'm not gonna be able to pull out as much as I put into the property. So great question though. Any others?
Well, I guess just to follow up, so do you need
Yes.
an invoice or do you need like an estimate?
You need an invoice.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you need an invoice.
When you say plan for more, is that obviously the contractor, you've got to have that agreement, say, hey, if we're high,
Yep. You make your contractors like, but yeah, no, and that's, I mean, if you don't have that trust with, like exactly what you're saying, like not everyone is down to play ball, you know what I mean? So if you're not sure, don't play that game, with the contractor. So just do exactly whatever the agreement is. It's relationships as well. Good. All right, that was so fun. Okay, so perfect. Let me make sure I didn't hit any more notes. All I was gonna say, awesome. Okay, so now we're gonna hang out. If you want to, feel free to grab beer, talk to everyone. When you stand up, everyone move your chairs to the side so people can mingle. And then normally we'd take a picture, but no one's wearing a mask, so we're not gonna, I shouldn't have said that. Anyway, that's it. Have fun. Thank you.